Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Sa atin po namang tapatan sa Aristocrat, pag-uusapan po natin ang bakuna at ganoon din po naman ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. This is a very interesting topic sapagkat unang-una, ngayon tumaas ang bilang ng mga COVID-19 positive cases. Siguro po, I would like to make a full disclosure. Our only child, si JP, 34 years old, is at the ICU of East Avenue Medical Center because he's afflicted with COVID-19. So, despite the crisis we're in, tuloy po ang ating tapatan sa Aristocrat. And the topic is very interesting because it has something to do with vaccines and the economy. Mga kaibigan, it's a pleasure to have with us Dr. Henry Lim Bonlyong, the President of the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We also have with us Mr. Cecilio Pedro, Vice President of the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Si Dr. Ted Herbosa, siya po ay dating Undersecretary ng Department of Health, Executive Vice President ngayon ng University of the Philippines System, at siya po ay isa sa mga tagapayo sa tanggapan ni Secretary Carlito Galvez na may meeting din ngayon tungkol dun sa kanilang pagbabakuna. Kasama rin po natin si Ginoong Victor Lim, Vice President ng Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, at si Mr. Jeffrey Nang. Siya po ang Pangulo ng UP School of Economics Alumni Association. At siya rin po ang Pangulo ng Association for Philippines-China Understanding. I do recall, noong pong dekada 70, mga 78, 79, kasama rin ako sa APCO noong mga panahong yon. But anyway, pag-usapan natin yan later. Ngayong araw na ito, dito po tayo sa atin sa tapatan sa Aristocrat, Vaccines in the Philippine Economy. Siguro let's start with Dr. Henry Lim Bonlyong to tell us how things are at the Federation and what have they been doing. Magandang umaga po.
Magandang umaga ho sa iyong Melo, sa mga tagapakinig natin. I'd like to start also, of course, with some sort of an opening statement.
Please.
In behalf of the Federation, Melo.
Please go ahead.
A pleasant morning to you, Melo, to our friends from the media and all the viewers. It's my pleasure to be here at Tapatan sa Aristocrat again. Pinapaabot ko rin ang pagbati ng aming organisasyon, ang Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Incorporated, sa inyong lahat, lalo na sa ating mga kaibigan sa media. Allow me to thank our media for helping share correct and helpful information in this very difficult time of pandemic and economic crisis. Salamat ho. Today's topics on Philippine economic recovery and vaccines is very relevant and very timely. Last year, the pandemic shrunk our economy by 9.5%. Then in January 2021, Labor Force Secretary of the Philippine Statistics Authority, our country's unemployment rate rose to 8.7% as more than 4 million Filipinos lost their jobs because of COVID-19. Nalulungkot tayo na dahil sa pandemic, marami nawala ng buhay, hanap buhay, at kabuhayan. We believe that our Philippine economy is resilient despite this global pandemic crisis, and we believe that the fundamentals of our economy are still positive, such as the government's prudent fiscal management, the young demographics, and abundant talents of our populations, the fast modernization of our infrastructures. And despite this global crisis, we remain hopeful about our Philippine economy. To grow our economy again, we need to recover the jobs lost, consumptions, and further open the economy. So it is important that we deal with the health problems soonest and decisively. This is why our Federation proposed a civic project of importing vaccines to protect our economic frontliners, entrepreneurs and workers, our family breadwinners, and most of whom are in micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, or the MSMEs. Through widespread vaccination, we are not only protecting them, but also their families, their senior parents, their children, and our local communities nationwide. By the way, I would like to clarify something, because there have been many online stories and posts about our proposed civic project of vaccines for our economic frontliners. We reiterate that we are still finalizing the details of this civic project. Nais lang po namin linawin na fina-finalize pa itong proyekto namin na ito. We shall only officially announce details and begin the project after seeking government's approval in a proposed tripartite agreement between government, FFC-CCII, and the vaccine supplier, and after following the priority guidelines of the government and the World Health Organization. Similar to other good sector initiatives to help secure more vaccines for the country by Secretary Joy Concepcion of Go Negocio, Ricky Rason, and Unilab, we at the FFC-CCII have proposed this civic project on vaccines to lessen the government's burden, to safeguard our economic frontliners, and to manifest our strong support for the national vaccination program against the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to point out at this time that we are not jumping the line, but we are opening new lines. As the pandemic has surged just the last few days, we want to open new lines to have as many vaccines as possible. Of course, we saw again the rise in COVID-19 cases and appeal to everyone to wear face masks properly, face shields, and practice physical distancing. As the doctors and scientists have said, these protections are equivalent to a vaccine. Likewise, we appeal to some of our people to not demonize and politicize the vaccines. Let us uphold truth and science. Vaccines save lives. If you are spreading fake news and unverified news about it, some people may refuse to be vaccinated and thus endanger their lives. Let us please take out the politics and geopolitics issue in the vaccines and let us heed the medical science in saving lives and in saving our economy. We have preference for Sinovac vaccine because it is developed using the traditional inactivated virus. And because it is a proven technology, in fact, several flu vaccines given annually are made by Sinovac, and our Philippines vaccination program started on March 1 with the country's top doctors receiving the Sinovac vaccines. It is not true that China vaccines are lesser in quality than Western vaccines. This is a misconception against Chinese and Asian products that we must rectify. In the past, in the 50s, the Japanese cars and electronic appliances were seen as inferior to Western products. And then years later, the Korean products followed, such as phones and electronics, which were also unfairly portrayed as inferior to Western products. But look now, these Asian products are leaders in the global competition. Some people nowadays still look down to also on China-made products, mistakenly thinking that they are only cheap and low in quality. But we must note that this same country, which today manufacture iPhones, also produce rising global and tech-savvy brands like Huawei. We must take note of the emerging global economic leadership of our neighbors and ancient friend China. One of the major successes of President Duterte's administration is normalizing Philippine-China relations, which has resulted to many infrastructure projects, increased trade in the other cooperation, which benefit our countrymen. In Shanghai or other major Chinese cities, we are glad and proud to see shops which sell our Philippine bananas, mangoes, pineapples, and other products in huge quantities. Before the start of online classes here due to the pandemic, you know that there are a lot of our talented teachers which are earning a lot of incomes as excellent and friendly English language online teachers to legions of kids over China. I heard from Chinese business people that many Chinese students prefer us Filipinos, fellow Asians, or our Filipino teachers to the Western teachers. These are only some of the good news for our economy. When Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited the Philippines last January, he underscored our two countries' exchanges with focus on anti-pandemic efforts and economic recovery. Our strong relationship with China, our cooperation in the areas of trade, economy, and infrastructures will be significantly into our journey towards a strong economic recovery. Last Tuesday, our board of directors had a dialogue with former Finance Secretary and now top international banker, Lito Camacho. He mentioned that a crucial task that the business sector should do is to help the Philippines to take advantage of the rise of our neighbor and traditional partner, China, as the emerging biggest economy in the world. Our competitors are other Southeast Asian nations, or countries' consumer markets of 1.4 billion increasingly rich people. In the very important industry of tourism, 120 million Chinese tourists are now traveling worldwide every year. We have abundant tourism destinations, but the 1.74 million Chinese tourists that arrived in the Philippines in 2019 is still very small compared to what our competitors and Asian neighbors are getting. Thailand alone welcomed 11 million Chinese tourists in 2019. And even the small city state of Singapore in 2019 welcomed at least 3.6 million Chinese tourists. Post-pandemic, we believe that the Philippines can tap the huge and lucrative Chinese tourist market for the recovery of the tourism sector, which is now hardly hit by the pandemic. Let me also quote my friend, ECO President Jun Ortiz Luis Jr., who said that during the Pandesar Forum last March 9, that many people in the Philippines do not know that China has its big need for vaccines for their own people. Yet they've already donated vaccines to 69 countries worldwide. In contrast, other Western countries bought vaccines for up to 3 to 5 times the need of the total population, thus depriving many developing countries like the Philippines of the much needed vaccine supply. We are touched by the generous donations of China of 600,000 doses of Sinovac vaccines, which arrived last February 28, plus the pledge to additional 400,000 doses that will be donated and shipped recently. And we thank Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian for his great help in facilitating the donation. We at our federations are also doing our best to help in whatever way we can. Apart from the China economy, we at the Federation also have many friends and businesses contacts with other countries of Asia, and we shall work hard to strengthen these ties for the benefits of our Philippine economy. As of now, since many of our country's top physicians are already vaccinated by Sinovac, I'm sure many more will follow. And if we have more vaccines nationwide this year, we are optimistic that we can fully revive the consumer confidence, rebuild businesses, and again, restore our Philippine economy growth this 2021. Today may be one of the grimmest times in our history, but we believe that no crisis or pandemic lasts forever. Let us never stop hoping, cooperating with each other, and preparing for our economic recovery. And let us unite ourselves and think of what's best for our countries and fellow men. Let us do our share to help revive the Philippine economy. Matulungan tayo lahat para sa mas magandang kinabukasan ng ating bansa at mga kababayan. Suportahan natin ang programa sa bakuna at ating gobyerno. Buhayin natin muli ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat ho at isang magandang umaga ho sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melo.
Maraming salamat po. Let's hear from Dr. Ted Herbosa. Dr. Ted, isa ka sa nabakunahan noong March 1st, Sinovac sa PGH, right? Kung di ako nagkakamali, ang sabi hanggang 59 years old, halos magkaedad tayo. Pero nagpabakuna kayo. How was it?
Yeah, like many of the other hospital directors na nag-aral noong datos ng Sinovac research, we find na yung sinasabing up to 59 is the data available. So nagpirma lang kami ng tinatawag na waiver. So it's important that to understand na when we apply studies, yung studies talagang nilalagay sa safe age range. No, above 18, below 60. Pero once you interpret it, titingnan mo na, like me, for example, hypertension lang ang aking comorbidity. I may be healthier than someone who is 52 years old but has all the comorbidity. So yung risk niya mas mataas kaysa sa risk ko. So I analyzed it based on risk, no? And I took up the waiver. Ako yung nag-waiver noon. I think that the benefit of getting the vaccine far outweighs the risks that are feared by the FDA. Kasabay ko naman si Director Eric Domingo when we were vaccinated.
Really? Pero mas
Yes.
bata sa atin si Eric, di ba?
Hindi, mas bata si Eric by a few years sa akin.
Kaya nga, pero I have to ask you this. Merong vaccine scare. Sa previous discussions natin, nabanggit na yung pinag-ugatan nito. Nagtitaper off na ba yung worry about vaccines today?
I think the vaccine hesitancy has tapered after they saw that many of the health workers ay nagpabakuna. I think that helped a lot. I think there were a lot of these people na dati hesitant, even in our own hospital, Philippine General Hospital. In the beginning, ang promise was Pfizer and AstraZeneca, which did not arrive. And then when Sinovac arrived, suddenly it became from 93% willing to be vaccinated, naging 8% na lang. So madaming nag-doubt, no? So that's natural. Pero when people like me, like Edsel Salbanya, Director Eric Domingo, Gap Legaspi got themselves vaccinated, we got surprised. Mas dumami pa yung gustong magpabakuna. At in fact, madaming na turn away on the first day kasi parang 125 lang ang nabakunahan nun. Ang hinanda nga nun parang a few hundred lang. So the following day talagang almost all the people nagpabakuna na.
Yeah. I tried to touch base with Dr. Gap Legaspi pero hindi niya ako nasagot. Siguro busy lang talaga. So what you're saying is nagtitaper off na yung vaccine hesitancy. Now, kung mag-taper off yung vaccine hesitancy, do we have the vaccine supply?
Ayan ang problema. The vaccine supply, we've just gotten the 1.1 million, di ba? Hati yan, donation from the Chinese government and donation from COVAX. Parang 600,000 plus 525,000. So 1.125 million yung so far dito sa Pilipinas. By tomorrow, may dadating pang another 1.4 million, I think. So plus then COVAX yun and an additional 400,000 doses donated by the Chinese government. Plus, I think anytime this month also arriving is our purchased order. So ngayon pa lang dadating yung ating pinurchase, no? So we purchased the Sinovac. So the first 1 million doses delivery is also due to arrive this month. So roughly around 2 million should be arriving. So that should push our vaccination program to second gear. So kasi first gear pa lang tayo, naka-primera pa lang tayo. So that should push up to second gear. And then I think by April, dadating din yung mga susunod na vaccines. Yung our Secretary Galvez just came from India and I think na-sign na rin yung supply agreement. And I think they're due to deliver April as long as the EUA is given by our FDA. So pag dumating din yun, that's another few million siguro per delivery. And hopefully by that time, April and May, public na ang binabakunahan natin.
Yeah, okay. All right. Babalikan natin mamaya yan, yung issue ng bakuna. Let's ask Jeffrey. Jeffrey, good morning and welcome. Coming from the, sabi nila is the best economic school sa Diliman, ano? Jeffrey, let me ask you, ano yung impact nitong bagong kalakaran ng gobyerno sa ekonomiya ng bansa? Dahilan sa yung mga restaurants, wala nang dine-in, puro take-out na lang. Pagkatapos yung mga pagawaan, kung pwede mag-work from home, pati yung government offices mababawasan. Anong impact nito sa ekonomiya?
I think understandable naman yung ginawa ng gobyerno, no? Na itong mga restaurant bawal na mag-dine-in ngayon, no? Dahil sa pagtaas ng mga COVID cases, ano? Halos 8,000 na sa isang araw. Pero negative ang impact sa ekonomiya. Dahil alam naman ninyo, halos isang taon na tayo sa mga rolling lockdowns na to at maraming mga micro, small at medium enterprises ang nahirapan na. No? Lalo silang mahirapan ngayon. We were hoping that the economy can recover swiftly this year. But unfortunately, until such time that we can have herd immunity, when we have, let's say, 70 million Filipinos have been vaccinated, then I think the economy will not be able to recover. We will still require such GCQs.
But you will agree with me that tourism is an important factor in generating revenues. And, well, of course, ito yung foreign exchange. Pero kung meron tayong mga lockdowns, bawal pa rin pumasok yung mga banyaga sa Pilipinas, parang standstill ang ating tourism.
Standstill talaga. Lahat ng mga resort natin, yung mga hotel, pati yung mga restaurant that are catering to local and foreign tourists are virtually zombies. Some resorts are enjoying only 10-15% occupancy rates. And many, like Makati, Shangri-La, have already closed down. So, and I don't see how foreign tourists will come in at the rate of, let's say, 2 years ago until probably next year. In the meantime, even our 3 domestic carriers, PAL, Cebu Pacific, Air Asia, are bleeding every day, every week, and every month. So it's just something that our domestic tourism sector have to grin and bear with.
Okay. Do you think the government has the capacity to extend social amelioration program benefits to people who may be displaced with these 2 weeks na parang hindi naman sinasabing lockdown pero restricted movements?
Mukhang mahirapan dahil I think last year the government already spent tens of billions or more for ayuda. But right now, I doubt if the urgency and the money will still be there to help yung mga nahirapan o mahihirapan in the next 2 weeks because of this tightening again on NCR and Cavite, Laguna, Bulacan, and Rizal.
Okay. Mr. Cecilio Pedro, ano po ang nakikita ninyong takbo natin sa ekonomiya ngayon? Good morning.
Yeah, moving forward, I think the economy right now is stagnant, dahil sarado ang we are under lockdown basically. But looking forward to, let's say, 3rd or 4th quarter, pag dumating na yung mga vaccines natin, I'm sure we will businessmen will rush in and to put all their resources to help the economy and hopefully bring back the economy to our pre-COVID level. But at this point, relying on the government is a little difficult dahil po yung pera ng gobyerno medyo naubos na eh. Taxes pa natin nabawasan dahil sa COVID. So talagang pahirapan ngayon. Tightening, belt tightening ang pag-uusapan dito. How businessmen should contribute and should do their best to help. Kasi may kita naman yung mga businessmen yung nakaraan ng taon, ang daming kinita nila So yung mga kinita nila dapat i-pour back natin, ibalik natin sa economy, ibalik natin sa negosyo para matulungan natin ang population at ang mga employees natin. That is my concern.
Yeah. I heard some people greeting themselves and their friends, long time no see. Bukod doon sa restriction na hindi ka makalabas, matagal na raw walang kita.
Okay yun.
Sakit na katotohanan doon. Pero yung bang pag-consume ng Pilipino, nagbago ba yung pattern? Dahilan sa, nadadaan ako sa palengke rito sa amin, sa Pag-asa. Sabi ko, kumusta yung bumibili ng alimango? Nagbago ba? Sabi niya yung alimango is 300, yung alimasag 280. Ano ang binibili ng tao? Yun ika, 50 pesos, isang tumpok. Ano yun? Talangka. So, you know, nagbago raw yung I don't know whether you also noticed it. Yung bang paggastos ng Pilipino, do you think it slowed down a bit, Mr. Pedro?
Yeah, I agree because I'm in the toothpaste business,
Precisely,
Yung,
I asked you.
yung consumption ng toothpaste basically flat. In fact, bumababa by plus and minus 5%. And there's a switch. Dati ang binibili ng toothpaste ay nasa tubes. Nasa malaking tubes, mas mahal eh. Ngayon, lumilipat sila sa sachets. Sa mga plastic sachets dahil mas mura. And I presume because people are trying to save and make use of whatever savings so they can sustain their lives in the economy, in the present state sa pandemic nito. So maraming lumilipat from expensive to less expensive or to even cheaper products.
I see. But the quality remains the same, right?
Yeah, the same. Exact for toothpaste, I mean, it's the same.
Yeah, of course.
We don't change the quality.
Yeah. Okay. Natatakot kasi ako kung hindi na bumibili nung nasa tube tapos hindi pa bumibili nung nasa sachet, may problema tayo dyan.
Asin na lang gagamitin.
Mr. Victor Lim, how do you look at the country's economy?
Actually, country now facing a very hello.
Yes.
Facing a very difficult situation with this pandemic already reached 1 year, and then all the hospital now are overwhelmed with patients, and I think a lot of hospital being waiting list for 40 patients cannot enter. So I hope this vaccine can be doing faster, allow the private sector to import the vaccine earlier, so simultaneously can be vaccinated to everybody, even our employees and our friends, our drivers, our family members also. All the lives are very, very important, not only the frontliner. Everybody's lives are important. As you say, your daughter are being hospitalized.
Yeah, my son.
Yeah, your son. Yeah. So,
Mahirap yan, pag ng daughter, magkakagulo, magkagalit yung misis.
so sorry. So everybody have a very important role in this vaccination program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Dr. Ted, mukhang the ball is in your court. Bakuna ang pinag-uusapan. Sabi nyo, yung supply ang problema, pero can we do it? Can we, I'd like to ask you this. What's the difference between Chile and the Philippines? Because Chile is also a poor country, and yet they have vaccines already.
We have vaccines also already. There is a perception kasi that these businessmen can acquire the vaccines very fast. Joey Concepcion signed the tripartite agreement. No one is asking him where the vaccines are already. And we signed that agreement in October. So wala pa rin yung bakuna niya. So it doesn't, when private sector tells me they can get the vaccine faster, nauna yata yung dumating yung sa gobyerno, which is Sinovac and Covax. So if you ask me and tell me now, you are promising that if we'll allow the private sector to buy, they can bring it faster, I will tell you, let's see, let's wait. Kasi yung in-order nila, Mr. Concepcion, wala pa eh. Tama? Mm-hmm. So mahirap nagsasabi na paasahin natin yung public na allow the private sector to buy. Yung binili nga nila, wala pa eh, di ba? Yung binili ng LGU, wala pa eh. So technically, hindi siguro nila naintindihan that there is a global shortage of the vaccine supply. So businessmen sila. They should understand how this supply is being hoarded and kept by other countries that have more money than us. So yun siguro dapat ng malinaw na ilatag natin sa taong bayan. Madali magpangako eh. Payagan nyo kami bumili, makakabili kami. Asa na, pinayagan na sila, di ba? Ang dami na nun, pati yung sa panggrupo, si Mr. Razon, pinayagan na rin. Asa na yung bakuna nila?
Nagpilmahan na yung Moderna.
Asa na yung bakuna? Sabi nyo, mabilis ang private sector. Yun ang tanong ko.
Okay. Before I open the floor to our colleagues from the media, let me ask President Henry Lim Bonlyong, asang status na po yung inyong ginagawang pakikipagkasundo, yung tripartite?
Melo, of course, as the private sector, we will not sign a tripartite with the government if we think that the vaccines will not be made available. In the case of Sinovac, of course, the Filipino-Chinese community, we have a pipeline of our own with the Chinese government regarding this one. So actually, the 500,000 are ready, to be shipped out yet. But we are, of course, we respect, of course, the judgment of our government in trying to give priority to the medical frontliners. So as I said again, that we are telling the government that we are not jumping the line, we are just opening new lines. Kasi right now, ang daming even the colleagues from the Federation, there were more than 10 of us has gone to the other world because of COVID. And we are here like sitting ducks every day at home. Most of us are not going out anymore. And how can we lead our company, our economic, mga frontliners namin, out of dormancy from the Filipino, natin dito without this one. Kasi I do not know about Joy Concepcion, AstraZeneca. I do not know about Moderna. Since Moderna, wala pa rin EUA. But then for Sinovac, we have already secured an allocation. But then, of course, right now, we are just waiting when we can sign the tripartite.
I see.
So hopefully we can sign it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Kasama po ba doon sa tripartite agreement that you will donate part of what you bought to the government?
Actually, Melo, what Joy Concepcion do with Astra? Kasi Astra, ang presyo nila pinakamababa daw at cost daw. Kaya we can afford to But for the others like Moderna and the others, the one that also offered by Unilab, medyo sabi naman ng gobyerno okay na rin kasi talagang it's exacting a heavy toll on the private sector. But then the government has enough money now to buy all the vaccines, and since we are also trying to spend on our own, hindi na daw kailangan, but to show respect out of the 500,000 vaccines that we will be ordering, part of that we would like also to donate also to the government to show our goodwill also. Hopefully, of course, we can send out tripartite as soon as possible. Salamat, Melo.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to open the floor to our colleagues from the media who I know have a lot of questions. Let's start with Inday Espina Barona of ABS-CBN. Good morning and welcome to the discussions. Inday, your questions, please.
Thank you. I'd like to address a question to Attorney
Hindi ko
Ted
makita,
Herbosa.
Inday, I can...
Okay, sorry. Okay. Morning, everybody. I'd like to address my question to Attorney Ted, the first one. May second lang ako, but short. Anybody can answer.
Kay?
Attorney Ted. Attorney Ted Herbosa.
Dr. Herbosa.
Doctor. Sorry. Dr. Ted Herbosa. Sorry, Doc. Nalito na ako. May kausap ako kaninang attorney. Okay. Doc, sabi mo kasi nasa na yung mga vaccines nila, di ba? But from interviews with these different groups, sabi nila it's not so much na mahina sila, but that the government had pinilit sila na pumasok kayo dito sa aming process because hindi naman sila pinayagan to do it on their own. It had to be under government mando, no? So parang how do you respond to that? Kasi ang claim nila, it's not sila, no?
Okay.
Hiningi pa.
Sige, sasagutin kita with a
Government
legal
wants
answer.
No.
I will
wait lang,
answer you
Atty.
with the legal
Wait lang,
answer.
Doc.
Okay, I will answer you with the legal answer. These vaccines are given an EUA. An EUA or emergency use authorization is not the same as certificate of product registration. A CPR allows these vaccines to be sold to the public, to be bought by investors and businessmen and sold to the public. The issuance or certificate given is that these vaccines are experimental. Number one, experimental. Number two, we don't know the final results of their experiments. Their experiments will end in November of 2022, at which time they can apply for a CPR kung talagang effective. But because the interim results, yung pangkalahati ang findings ng ating bakuna na ginawa nila to over 40,000 subjects or experiments, 40 to 50,000, ay maganda ang results. Pumayag ang maraming bansa na bigyan sila ng emergency use authorization by the national government. Wala pa pong private sector na inaalaw. Ang system talaga is that the suppliers talk to the national government. They will not talk to an individual businessman because they don't like a small deal. Ang gusto nila, billions of pesos or billions of dollars in purchase. Sino ang bibili ng billion? Si national government. At ang gusto din nila, number two, ay mayroon kayong batas na tinatawag na vaccine injury indemnification law. Ang makakagawa lang ng batas ay hindi private sector. Gobyerno po ang makakagawa ng indemnification law. So ano ibig sabihin ng indemnification law? Pag merong na-injure or namatay dahil sa bakuna na binigay ng government, eh gobyerno rin ang mag-indemnify sa mga kamag-anak ng biktimang naapektuhan. Kasi nga, experimental pa. So ito ang rason. Hindi siya hinohoard. Please do not use that word na pinipilit ng gobyerno ang private sector na hindi bumili at dumaan sa kanila. Kasi po, meron tayong Food and Drug Administration, meron tayong mga batas. Kailangan sundin po natin yung ating mga batas para ang ating mamamayan ay safe. Hindi ko na kailangan paalala sa inyo, nagawa na ito dati. In fact, ang dami namatay na bata, di ba? Kasi pinilit ipasok ang isang drug na hindi pa tapos ang experiment.
Okay. Yeah.
Doc, follow up lang ako. Doc, alam namin yan, kaya FDA, kaya nga maraming nagalit dun sa Sinopharm, di ba?
Sinopharm. Ano nangyari sa
Pero
Sinopharm?
yung ang sinasabi is, hindi pa doon eh. Yun ang second question ko. But first, follow up doon is, it wasn't so much that as yung flow ng release ng distribution of vaccines. Because the government was saying na una muna dito ang pangangailangan ng central government bago nung private sector
Okay.
na
Hindi rin po yan whim ng gobyerno. In our vaccination program, meron tayong tinatawag by law, the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group. The NITAG has been created by law to be able to establish the principles to prioritize and implement vaccine programs that the government intends to supply. Hindi yung pag-iisip ng presidente, hindi ho yung pag-iisip ni Secretary Duque. Yan pong prioritization of vaccines is thought of by a group of experts who are very familiar with the way immunization programs are run. Ang tawag sa kanila, NITAG. In fact, ang tinawag ngayon sa kanila, Interim National Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Yun ang katotohanan dyan. So, hindi rin totoo na pinipilit sila na sumunod sa gobyerno. Hindi, may proseso po. Sinusunod natin ang proseso para wala pong mapahamak na kahit isang Pilipino.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for enlightening us, Dai.
All right, Inday. Thank you.
Sinopharm na lang.
Sinopharm na lang. O ano raw status ng Sinopharm?
Ang alam ko yung Sinopharm, nag-apply siya ng EUA. That's what I know. So, maghihintay tayo. Pag in-approve siya ng FDA, eh pwedeng bumili ang national government, pwedeng mag-donate ang China ng Sinopharm.
All right. Next question will come from CNN. Let's have it, Melissa.
Hi, sirs. Good morning. Sir, first question to Dr. Erbosa as well. Sir, nagka-issue recently about the provision of the draft administrative order ng DOH regarding there are specific restrictions on companies which can import or like at least talk to foreign vaccine makers. Sir, na-resolve na ba yun? Like, was it removed? Kasi some senators raised alarm over it kasi parang wala daw yun sa immunization law pero sinama sa IRR?
I have seen the draft. I have seen the complaints of netizens about it because someone leaked it to the draft. I think it needs further discussion kasi I don't think it has been finalized, but I agree with removing it from the draft because it's a national emergency. I'm an emergency and disaster doctor. And I think some rules that were created for normal times, some laws, kasi meron tayong breast milk law that kind of states that. And we have the sin tax law that kind of states that. So the people that are pushing this paragraph in the draft are also backed up by regulations. So ang nadinig kong sinabi ng ating spokesperson ay pag-aaralan po yan at how to go around this particular situation so that the clamor of everyone, even the people working in the vaccine, in the tobacco, soft drink, and milk formula industries will also have a chance to have access to vaccine. So ako, my personal view ko to, but that goes through us. As you said, it's a draft. By a draft IRR or guidelines, it goes through a process of comments, review, revisions. So I will wait for the final one, and then I have already given my opinion to it to higher ups. I'm just an advisor. So as of now, I'm not the one making the policy, but I can advise. So my advice is to remove that particular paragraph because I think it's inimical to fighting a pandemic. Imagine you will create a certain sector of society that will not have access to vaccines. So you create health inequity. Access to vaccines is the most important priority of the country today.
And health inequity is a violation of a provision in the Constitution, right?
Correct. And we provide that in our Constitution that access to healthcare is an equal right. It's a right for every citizen. So yan, magandang basis pala yan. So even if you have other laws like that, like the milk code and cigarette.
Go back to the Constitution.
You go back to the Constitution. The Constitution states you cannot deny access to healthcare to any Filipino. So ano siya, unconstitutional siya. So anyone, even if they sign that, maybe some lawyers can contest that paragraph and bring it to the Supreme Court. And let's see how the Supreme Court will decide.
Okay. Melissa?
Sir, also, 2 questions po for Dr. Bonleong. Sir, first, how does this provision na controversial right now nga po yung sa limiting the importation to select sectors affect your chamber's plan to import vaccines and also yung general vaccination program? Because you mentioned earlier nga, sir, it's crucial to recovery.
Melissa, I don't think that one apply to the federation. So it's not really a concern with federation regarding that particular aside. Also, Dr. Rebosa said no, that is really against the Constitution. So we are still pursuing, but then of course, there's a mandate of the government to follow the priority list. And this is what we are trying to follow. And hopefully that they can be also given a little leeway as far as the priority list is concerned. That's why we're saying as the medical frontliners are very important to us. The economic frontliners are equally important also. So hopefully, if we secure the vaccines, baka pwede natin naman, sabay-sabay naman natin dito. Kasi kung may access ka naman dito sa mga additional vaccines and then parang teka muna, dito muna. So we are just, but at the end of the day, it's the government regulations that we have to follow also.
Sir, next question. Yung more comments po, sir, on the new restrictions announced by the government yesterday. I understand restaurants are among the most affected. Tapos tourism sectors, generally retail as well kasi bawal po ulit lumabas yung mga minors and older cohorts. Sir, how does this affect businesses? Do you foresee more of more industries or more players shutting down? And how does this affect economic revival in the longer term? Like tatagal po ba or yung time that we have to wait before we can recover as a whole? Thank you, sir.
Melissa, kasi at the start of the year, I was very, very optimistic. So because maybe through the second, third quarter, we will recover already. Kaya lang, because of the sudden surge of this pandemic, may bago naman ng regulations. mga mall, mga movie houses, mga restaurant, hindi na pwede mag-dine in and all these things. I think it set us back at this another quarter. So hopefully, it's only the third or fourth quarter tayong that we are trying to see whether if we could recover. Medyo talagang hirapan tayo. And I would like to also everybody knows that the Philippines has the longest lockdown. To our other neighboring countries like Vietnam, Thailand, mga ibang country natin, even Indonesia. So we are one of the frontliners of the economy in the past 10, 15 years. But sad to say, right now, medyo kulela tayo. So hopefully, our economic managers today here, even NEDA, was against a total lockdown and all these things. Kasi nakikita na hindi to another lockdown will send us back siguro 1 or 2 years behind our Asian neighbors.
Okay. Yes. Jeffrey, let me ask you this. Melissa, may tanong ka pa ba? Meron pa?
Okay na po kasi. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. Jeffrey, coming from an economist's point of view, ano ang dapat na strategy to keep micro, small, and medium enterprises afloat? What should be the strategy?
Well, the best would be for the government, to continue providing credit access to these micro, small, and medium enterprises. And let's say Land Bank, DBP, the Small Business Corporation should be able to lend more to these struggling companies, because once they close, they will have a difficult time reviving their operations. And it is these small companies which hire the bulk of workers in the country. So we really need to help these micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Yeah.
I think it's only the government that can infuse needed liquidity and credit to these thousands of small entrepreneurs all over the country.
But you will also agree with me, Jeffrey, that banks will only grant you loans if they see that your business is viable.
That's true, especially for privately owned commercial and universal banks. That's why it's incumbent on the government to provide the needed liquidity. That's why I mentioned the Land Bank and DBP and the Small Business Corporation under DTI. They are the ones who would have to take on a little more credit risk in lending to these struggling small, medium, and micro enterprises. Because during these days, the privately owned banks are even more conservative in their lending policies, which is understandable. That's why government has to come in. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can reserve another day for discussing with them. Are they accessible to the micro, small, and medium enterprises?
Sure.
And we will get you on the panel. May tanong din dito. I don't know whether Dr. Henry Lim Bonlyong or Cecilio or Victor or Dr. Ted Herbosa can respond to this. Dahil sa may nabalita raw na baka hindi ma-approvean yung Sinopharm dahil sa may policy raw ang China na once na may isang korporasyon from China, hindi na pwedeng mag-compete. Ano ba yun? May katotohanan po kaya iyon? Would you know?
Melo, walang we can find out whether it's true or not. But of course, parang nakikita ko sa ibang bansa, pag nandiyan na Sinovac, usually walang Sinopharm. Pag may Sinopharm, walang Sinovac. But I still do not know whether that is the
that is the policy.
the use of practice or not for China.
Yeah, okay.
To find out.
Yeah, Dr. Ted, from your end, coming from the government, because Sinopharm...
Wala rin ako nadinig na policy na ganyan. Our government policy is a policy of we can purchase from any source. Kasi nga, not one can supply the needs of our country. So we had to do an approach wherein we are getting from several manufacturers. So inunti-unti natin para mabuo natin yung 196,000 million doses na kinakailangan natin. So ano tayo, ang approach natin, kung magsusupply sila and willing sila, we will probably procure it.
Okay. Dr. Ted, may tanong yung kasama nating si Wesley Chua ng Chinese Commercial News. Sabi niya, may we know if vaccination program, the government and the private sector, will include foreigners residing in the country? Because if private sector cannot import the vaccines, where can the foreign residents get their vaccines? Dr. Ted?
I think the foreigners, especially the foreigners, the retirees, are also included, but they're the last in the tier in the prioritization. So I think eventually mababakunahan sila. Because remember, we have commitments for about 196 million. Our total target is only about 70 million. So that's only 140. So magkakasobra yan. And then if the private sector comes in, I think pwede rin sila. If they're working for the private company and their private company actually did a tripartite agreement, then they will be included in the vaccine program.
Okay. Pero may narinig din ako. Ewan ko kung narinig mo na ito. At the rate that we vaccinate people, baka raw apunan ni Pangulong Duterte ang presidente ng Pilipinas. Hindi tayo natatakot.
Yeah, the vaccine program at first gear is really very slow. And that is deliberate. Why is it deliberate? Because imagine if I injected all the personnel of, let's say, Philippine General Hospital in a day or two. If the following day, may lagnat lahat yon. Baka walang pumasok. Baka huminto yung services. So it is also deliberate that when we injected in the hospitals, we really took only 10 people at a time per unit so that no unit will shut down. Kasi kung lagnatin yung iba, medyo masama pakiramdam, hindi pumasok the following day or during their shift. So it was deliberate to slow it down. But once we have the LGUs vaccinating the public, I think they will see an increase. And when I computed it, to reach 70 million, we should be vaccinating 390,000 Filipinos daily. So if that can be done all over the country, sabay-sabay, both the private sector, the public sector, the LGUs, I think we should be able to reach our targets faster than what is, surmised by this opposition ideas na mabagal masyado. Hindi totoong mabagal. Bibilis po yan. The same way, nagbago yung opinion ng mga vaccine hesitant, gusto na lahat magpabakuna. Bibilis din po yan once we start all LGUs vaccinating.
Okay, thank you. We're joined by Irma Isip. Irma, go ahead with your question. Please unmute. Irma, hello? Asan na ba yun? Irma, meron siyang tanong na sinulat eh. Baka may problema yung kanyang linya. For Dr. Henry Lim Bonlong, what is taking the tripartite agreement so long to finalize? From Irma Isip. Dr. Henry? Dr. Henry Lim Bonlong, please.
Sorry, Melo, can you repeat again?
Sabi ni Irma, what is taking the tripartite agreement so long to finalize?
Actually, as I said, of course, the government would like all the medical frontliners to be vaccinated first before the other priorities. I think the second priorities are the elderly, yung mga senior citizens. So that's it. Yung sinasabi namin, there are policies that we have to follow. So we are still waiting when the medical frontliners will be vaccinated thoroughly. And of course, as Dr. Herbosa said, there will be already 1.4 million vaccines from Sinovac coming in this month, and another from AstraZeneca. So hopefully by the end of April, I think we should be given the access already to import. Hopefully by that time.
Okay. Would you like to, well, anyway, may humihingi Dr. Henry Lim Bonillong no, inyong opening statement. Pakipadala na lang daw sa ating kasamang si Wilson. Jerome of Reuters, you have some questions. Please go ahead. Jerome?
All right, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, sir. Of course, with these restrictions, okay, I'm gonna open my camera. All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
good,
Sir,
good. Nice to see you.
good morning, Sir Melo, and to our guests. Sir, with these new restrictions, particularly expanding outside of the capital, what will be the added cost to the business sector with this new restrictions? And then, just to elaborate on what my colleague Mel has asked, will there be an unexpected reduction in terms of capacity of our factories, or because of this new restrictions? And then also, will there be any more layoffs because of this, at least for the next 2 weeks or next few weeks? Thank you.
Okay, and to whom is the question addressed?
Yes, to our officials from FFCCCII po.
Okay. Yes, any takers from the group? Yes, Mr. Cecilio Pedro and Mr. Victor Lim?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that question.
Please.
The challenge we face right now, once we are on lockdown, is travel. Kasi maraming mga employee natin, they are staying outside of Metro Manila. Like most of my employees are either in Laguna or in Cavite. Now, when you put the restriction for travel, they will have to wait in the what do you call that, checkpoint, and kakaroon na naman ng traffic. Hindi sila makaka-report on time to work in the factory. You know, in the factory, we have to start on time to make all the machineries run at the same time. Pag dalawa o tatlo na late, hindi tatakbo yung makina. Nakalinya yan eh. Pag hindi tumakbo yung makina, our production will go down. So that will affect our business because our products will now be less, or maybe will not be available because of that lockdown. So itong madaling sabihin na they are essential people that they can travel in and out. Pero pagdating ng checkpoint, ang haba niyan, sa dami ng tao pumipila, tagal niyan. Maabot ng oras yan bago makalusot. So yun ang challenge dito ngayon. This is the same as ECQ. So pag na-lockdown yan, hindi makakapasok yung mga employees namin. Ay yung mga nasa loob ng Metro Manila, hindi naman makakalabas. Kung uuwi sila, hindi sila makakalabas. So we have to provide, I don't know, dormitory immediately in 1 or 2 days. Impossible naman yan, ano? So you have to allow us to express all of these concerns before you lock down, or before you stop our people from moving in and out. Travel is the biggest challenge for us.
Jerome?
All right, thank you so much for that answer, sir. And but for our other officers po, any thoughts on this? May threats po ba ng in terms of job cuts, at least temporarily, because of this? And of course, higher prices for your products. You'll be incurring additional costs. So are you warning our public right now that there could be added pass on cost to them? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Lim?
Yeah. With regards to alam mo, Melo, last year, when the pandemic just started, the businessmen are still very what you call them, very accommodating also, and of course very helpful to mga empleyado natin kasi we still give out salary and also ayuda for those people that cannot work now because of the pandemic. But I think medyo na-dried up na yung mga namin. Kaya this year talagang sobrang naman hirap ng kumpanya. Of course, right now, as far as non-essential is concerned, talagang patay na yan, mga negosyo. As far as essential is concerned naman, there's always this supply and demand naman ang problema natin. If there are not enough supply, the big demand, automatically the price will go up. So it's really on supply and demand. I think that there's no law that can go against that universal law of supply and demand. Mga economists, they should understand about it. Of course, that's also the reason why I did not take up economics as ano eh, naging engineer. Kasi sabi ko, ang father ko, sabi ko, kailan economics yan? Kasi during my time, yung mga, mga economics professor like Jerry Sikat and all of this, lang nga sikat na sikat sila, they earn by the hours, ano? Kaya lang sabi ko lang sa father ko, economics, hindi ba supply and demand lang yan? Walang challenge, sabi ko. Kaya naging engineer naman ako. Pero I'm not saying that's the only rule of, but that is the basic universal law. Kaya that's why if you put a price cap or you put a price freeze or whatever, no, suddenly nakikita mo, mawalan sa merkado yung mga baboy natin, mga whatever. Kasi mahirap talagang to go against that particular law. So regarding yun, sinasabi, that's why let's still urge the businessman, lalo yung mga food products natin, that they should really produce more. If they produce more, automatically the price will go down or taper off. Another thing is that I just received a text from one of my good friend, is former NEDA, head of NEDA. Sinasabi ng sa ngayon, in Indonesia and Thailand, I think private firm are allowed to import their own vaccines para makuna sa sarili mga tao nila. So he's asking whether how come the Philippines cannot follow suit. Yun lang. Salamat ako, Melo.
Thank you.
Sir, one more.
Yes.
For our economists, for Prophet.
Tanungin ko rin, Jerome. No?
Sige, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Victor Lim, your thoughts about this? Do you see job cuts?
Yeah, a lot of jobs will be cut due to the lockdown and so a lot of unemployment will be very high. The purchasing power will be at a very low situation. So the marketing will be at a very high risk. The sales will go down. Maybe most of the industry selling around 30% to 40%. Some industry only 15% on the selling. So it's a very dangerous situation. And the bank are very careful giving out loans. If your industry are in a very hard situation, they will not give you a loan. After you paying them, they will stop lending you already. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, Jerome,
Yes. One more for our professor po, Professor Nang. Speaking of supply and demand, we've seen inflation hit 2-year heights in February, particularly because of the supply shock. So what do you expect the inflation situation given this new restrictions? And then there's an upcoming policy meeting this Thursday. So what do you expect the BSP to do in terms of policy rates? Thank you, Professor.
I'm not a professor. I'm just a graduate now. I'm a businessman also.
Okay.
I happen to be the president of the UP School of Economics Alumni Association. Yeah. I think interest rate will be maintained by the PSP because it's already at a historic low. In fact, at 2%, savers already getting negative interest rates with inflation at 4%. And the government is doing its best to lower the level of inflation by allowing more importation of pork products from other countries. Because as you know, there is a raging Asian swine flu disease that's killing 70% of pigs in Luzon already. And this is what caused the shortage of pork. So the government is going to allow importers to bring in the supply of pork, and this should probably reduce the shortage of pork and thus lower our rate of inflation to a certain extent in the coming months until the end of the year.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. And just to remind our panelists, I sent a private message, so hope we can share your contacts, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Ako hindi na kailangan ko eh. Anyway, Jeffrey, coming from the economics, economic field, do Do you honestly think that the build can spur the economy at this point in time?
Well, with the um, work restrictions, no, that are imposed on many construction sites, many construction sites can only work with 50% capacity. This is a big binding constraint on the going full blast of build. And I believe until such time that we achieve herd immunity, until such time that 70 million Filipinos are actually vaccinated, and we completely lift all restrictions, no, on movement, on work restrictions, work requirements, then it's really difficult for the economy to achieve takeoff, no? Achieve the level of growth that we were used to the past 10 years before last year.
Yeah.
No, Melo, can I add something there to that?
Please.
Bill. Alam mo, Melo, of course, the government build for the last so many years. That's a very big success for our economy. Of course, Secretary Darren, me, and we also advocated the plan. And then last year, actually, the Federation also advocated spend, di ba? Kaya lang gastos to spend. But then, we are also saying, if we do not spend, the economy will have a very vicious cycle. If we do not spend, lahat ng tindahan dyan, hindi makasurvive, di ba? Pag hindi makasurvive, they cannot order from the factory. The factory naman, they have to generate jobs naman, they cannot hire people. So it's going to be a vicious cycle. But if we have to spend, saan naman pera, di ba? So we really have to stimulate the economy. That's what America is doing. They are doing 1.9 trillion stimulus packets para sa kanila. And a lot of other countries are doing the same. Ang sinasabi ko rin, even Taiwan, they came out with coupon that you pay only for 1,000 NT dollars, but you can spend it for 3,000 NT dollars. They really give additional stimulus. Siguro the presently, I do not know how we can do it. But unless we really spend, there's not much thing we can do about it. I understand also during the Great Depression, in the early 1900s, yung mga kalsada sa Amerika, yung mga magandang kalsada, sinisira nila para they can repair it again, and that's how they spend. Kaya ganun naman talaga. You really have to find ways of how to generate jobs. But then you have to also stimulus by giving out more stimuli to the private sector. Yun lang Melo. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. May tanong para kay Jeffrey mula kay Bernie Magkilat ng Bulletin. When will the economy post a positive GDP? Is it possible in the third quarter? Because Secretary Lopez said a positive GDP is possible in the second quarter or third. A positive GDP, hindi positive COVID yung pinag-uusapan natin dito, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think the second quarter should be positive simply because of the severe lockdown in the second quarter of last year. The GDP went negative 15% last year. So it really has nowhere to go but to go up in the second quarter. For sure, we will have a positive GDP already in the second quarter.
Don't you think it's also, the COVID-19 pandemic opened our eyes that we haven't spent enough for health services? If you're to look into the budget, kulang pa ba yung inilalaan ng pamahalaan para sa social service, particularly health, Jeffrey?
Sa tingin ko kulang. The pandemic has shown that the level of health system in the country leaves a lot to be desired. Government has to invest a lot more, especially up to the barangay level.
I was talking with a colleague from a Chinese news agency. Sabi niya, mukhang mas mahal magpagamot sa Pilipinas kaysa sa China. I don't know whether you will agree with that statement because I subjected myself to a consultation sa Beijing some years ago and I was just charged 5 yuan. And when I asked the doctor, how much am I supposed to pay for the fee? No, it's included in the 5 yuan that you paid. Sabi ko, taka muna. Ganun talaga. Well, don't you think mas mahal dito sa Pilipinas kaysa sa China particularly?
Yeah, I think the health system can stand more competition. And like PhilHealth is already almost running out of funds. The government probably would have to infuse new budget into PhilHealth. At the same time, probably the premium on PhilHealth members might have to be increased just to make sure that the PhilHealth system is viable in the months and years ahead.
Okay. May pahabol si Bernie for Dr. Henry Lin Bonlyong and Mr. Nang. The DOF said there is no more money for a third stimulus package. Your comments, please.
Melo, kaya na, yun ang nakakalungkot sa atin eh. Wala nang pera for stimulus packets eh. Medyo mahirapan mga entrepreneur like us but I think we are very resourceful naman. Let's hope that we can help more people mabakunan at the shortest possible time so that we can regain our momentum sa ekonomiya natin.
Yeah. Jeffrey?
Yeah, I think government has to be more judicious and be more resourceful in sourcing local and foreign funding, especially to help save the tens of thousands of micro, small, and medium enterprises that are really struggling throughout the country. Hindi naman to ayuda, hindi naman itatapon itong pera na to. Ito ay pwedeng ipahiram muna sa mga nangangailangan na negosyante, lalo na yung mga maliliit na negosyante. Dahil yung mga pribadong sektor na bangko ay takot na magpahiram sa mga maliliit na negosyante.
Okay. Sana siguro meron din tayong matatanong. Where is the money? How was it spent? That will be another discussion. Ted, yung views mo about the health costs in the Philippines compared with other countries. Mahal nga ba?
Well, number one, I think the problem in the Philippines is that everything I use as a doctor, from the gloves to the cotton balls to the syringe, everything I use for a patient I prescribe or I operate on is imported. Everything. We import it from other countries, and that increases our cost because there is a businessman that imports it, puts a profit on it. There is a government that puts taxes on it. So we need to change that. If you really want to have healthcare that is competitive, we have to revitalize the medical industry. And when I say medical industry, not only hospitals, but medicine manufacturing plant, vaccine manufacturing plants, what else? Equipment manufacturing plant, implants, chemotherapeutic agents that are very expensive, operating room equipment and devices that are all imported. So without that, healthcare in the Philippines will continue to be very expensive. And as mentioned, our PhilHealth funds will not be able to pay for it. So that's a big inequity. I think my colleagues in the economic sector should actually try to address that. But I'd like to make a comment about the ongoing discussions. And I believe what hasn't been done is a summit. Because in the beginning last year, we listened to the experts in healthcare, and they didn't understand economics. Now, it seems the IADF is listening to the economists, and I don't think they understand the motions of a pandemic or the global pandemic. I really suggest that there should be a summit not only within the government sector, but also within the private sector. I think get the best experts of the economists and educate these people who are advising government on health, and let the health sector educate the businessmen also. Because I think if you work together, we can fight it together. The how to open a business, what businesses are safe, what businesses are not. If that information is shared by the two silos, I think we will be able to fight this pandemic better. I think the other countries that have succeeded have something like this, whether it be Japan, Korea, Singapore. It cannot be that we're talking at each other. We have to talk with each other. I'm not an expert in economics, but when I listen to economic experts here or businessmen here, yun nga, may shortcoming. Why will you complain to us doctors about the high cost of healthcare? Mag-manufacture kayo dito. Someone has to invest in that. Risk yan, di ba? Business risk yan. Kasi baka malugi siya. Invest siya ng factory, tapos maliit yung market. Hindi niya ma-export, hindi siya makakompete sa world market. So, I think talking together might be a better solution. And then, we come up together with the better solutions for the IATF. Baka hindi yung naghihintay tayo ng policy na dinidevelop nila, isusubo sa atin Sunday at gusto nila mag-comply na tayo on a Monday, di ba? Parang ang tingin ko dapat nag-uusap yung health and economic sector together.
Okay.
I'd love to hear the views of the economists here and the businessmen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may add, I
Yes,
think
please.
what we need is a whole of society effort, not just government, not just private sector, but whole of society effort, through tripartite agreements, so that the vaccines can come in as soon as possible. We need 70 or even 140 million vaccines in the next few months, to provide herd immunity in the country. What we can do is, the top businessmen, the country can probably, just like government officials, inoculate, have themselves vaccinated, so that their employees and their workers all over the Philippines can see that if the top businessmen in the Philippines are willing to be vaccinated immediately, then the more their workers and employees would also agree to be vaccinated. And really, private sector has worked in unison with government so that this rollout can be achieved. We need 400,000 a day vaccination. This is a tall order, but it has to be done at the soonest possible time if we are going to recover the economy by the third or fourth quarter of this year. Remember that 5 million Filipinos have been thrown out of work since last year. Millions more have been underemployed. So we need to bring them back to work, give them jobs. Business has to invest again for everyone to prosper in the country.
Yeah. Meron tayong isang viewer na COVID-19 survivor. I'm happy that he's watching us today. The question is for anyone who'd like to answer it. Is talking together still possible in this administration? Any taker?
Well, it's not only possible, it is required, in order for us to go back to economic normalhood. Definitely, it's possible. It should be done at the soonest possible time for the private sector to talk and work hand in hand on a daily basis to import these 140 million vaccines that we need and roll them out and make sure that 70 million Filipinos are vaccinated in the next few months.
Okay. Mabuti naman, meron pa tayong optimism na nakikita. Good morning kay Professor Betty Baronia, kay Alan Uribiana, kay Malu Mariano watching us from California. Ganon din sa ating manonood mula sa Saudi Arabia. Nanonood si Alex Sagario at mula sa Southern Metro Manila, si Andrea Erfe Porte. Magandang umaga kay Juby de Guzman. Sabi niya, longest lockdown meaning biktima tayo ng knockdown. No? Knockdown. Okay. I'd like to end our discussions with some encouraging words from you. And these encouraging words could be as candid as possible. Tama na yung good news, bad news syndrome siguro. Let's start with the bad news. Dahil from the bad news, we can project whether we will have some good news. Yes, Mr. Victor Lim, from your end.
Yeah, let's think positive, and then
Uy.
we will go on smoothly after this pandemic problem. Hopefully, by end of this third quarter, we will be able to solve this problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Cecilio Pedro, please.
Thank you, Melo. I'm a Christian. I believe in prayers. I believe we are blessed. This country is blessed because we believe in God. So let's come together in prayer, ask for guidance from the Lord and blessings. And by the grace and mercy of God, we will overcome this problem. This problem is temporary. Sandali lang yan. But meanwhile, tayo ay nasa gitna ng pandemic. Kaya nahihirapan tayong lahat. But we have, sabi ng mga iba, very resilient ang Pilipino. Let's continue to hold on to God. Continue to think positive that in spite of all of these challenges, soon it will come to pass. But meanwhile, we have to work together, help one another, whether it's businessman, it's government, or it's the private sector, the private individual, will have to try to help each other. Kailangan magtulong-tulong po tayo. Walang ibang paraan para ma-overcome natin itong problema. And by the grace of God, we will overcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And incidentally, ngayong taong ito ang ika-500 taon ng pagdating ng Kristyanismo sa Pilipinas.
Amen.
Let's thank God. Nagkaayos tayo dyan. Yes, Mr. Jeffrey.
Well, I have no doubt that government together with private sector will be able to import the tens of millions of vaccines that are required by the third quarter every month. They will be coming in. In the US is going to have a surplus of these vaccines already by May or June. So it will now be in a position to export tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions every month by July. So I'm sure that by the end of the year, the Philippines will be able to achieve herd immunity, and we can all look forward to a better, safer, more progressive Philippine economy by next year.
Thank you. Dr. Ted?
I'm also positive, no? We're just battling an infection. And infections end. Hindi naman cancer yung kalaban natin. Yung cancers lead you to die. Infections, we can fight. So I believe with all the economies and the businessmen and their positivity, na siguro ang kulang sa atin, working together and working with each other, partnerships, common goals. No, I think honestly, I read social media and toxic. Parang ang dali kasi mag-criticize ng government. But I admire the private sector that's putting out solutions out there and then offering it to government and partnering with government. So I think I agree with the whole of society. And I also agree with praying. Magdasal tayo na hindi na magka third level variant na even worse that can kill everyone. I think we should pray also. And I think we should try to step back, look at the big picture, work together, whole of society. Pilipino tayo, magbayanihan tayo. Maraming salamat, Melo.
Thank you. Dr. Henry Lim Bonjong, please. Paki-unmute lang.
Pelo, if sabi ni Dr. Ted, if he's positive, we have to follow him. And siyang doktor talaga, di ba? You're the one fighting this virus for us. And by the way, I'd like to greet, of course, Dr. Ted kasi alam ko yung mga herbosas, itong mga descendants ni Jose Rizal to eh. Ted Herbosa, the SCC chairman, is our chairwoman, is my good friend, and every time we have this whatever affair, nandiyan siya, no? Was I represent the Jose Rizal clan, and I'm happy that kayong mga descendant ng one of our national hero. And again, what Dr. Ted has said, that hindi naman cancer ito, virus naman to, di ba? So we are looking forward, no, to have as many people to be vaccinated as soon as possible, no? Kanina sinasabi ko, actually when we ordered the 500,000 doses, nandiyan na yan. But of course, every time that we delay our delivery, pinapasa ito sa mga ibang kasi they cannot wait for us. They have so many orders worldwide. So pinapasa-pasa sa mga ibang country muna. Kaya hopefully by the time we got our tripartite, nandiyan pa yun, they still reserve the 500,000 doses from us. Well, hopefully after that, the government will be more relaxed for the private sector for us to import on our own. But this is lessen really the burden of the national government. And with more people being vaccinated, I think we can return to normal as soon as possible. So yun lang, Melo. Thank you for giving us opportunity to air our views. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Pag masama ang kalagayan ng panahon, you can always look forward to something better. And with the discussions we had today, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. And I hope the tunnel gets shorter every day. It won't get longer anyway. Pero I'd like to thank ating mga kasama, si Ginoong Victor Lim, si Ginoong Cecilio Pedro, si Jeffrey Nang, si Dr. Ted Bosa, at si Dr. Henry Lim Bonjong. I just want to ask our friends to say some prayers pa para kay JP na nasa ICU, yung aming kaisa-isang anak. At sana gumaling na rin siya. However, let me end our discussions by quoting a man who said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." And the quote comes from Sir Winston Churchill. Thank you. Have a nice day. God bless us all. Salamat po. Till next time.
God bless. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you
Stay
very
safe.
much. Maraming salamat.
Everybody,
Thank you.
stay safe. Stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.